Many possibilities for collapse exist, but none are more dangerous, none are more threatening than the collapse of the derivatives market. Today I will discuss what exactly is a derivative. Easy explanation with diagrams. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I want to get into these derivatives today. I'm consistently being asked, what exactly is a derivative? So I'm going to use this easy way to explain it, and we'll get on with this as soon as possible. Let's get into the equity dispersion derivatives. This is it right here. If you want to know what a derivative is, according to the financial media, you can take this equation and calculate it and carry the x over the 1 and square root of this and that, and you'll have your answer. Of course, I'm not one to really understand this sort of thing. Leave this to the professionals. Leave this to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, the ones who control the derivatives. So let's go to Wikipedia. Maybe they have a better explanation for this. In finance, a derivative is a contract that derives its value from the performance of an underlying entity. This underlying entity can be a blah, 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 blah. Now that you've all fallen asleep, I will just get on with the easy explanation. Let's get into the diagram from my book, which I'll show you right here. This is just one example, sort of a little, cartoon way of drawing it, and that you have a home. The home has a mortgage. That mortgage actually is belonging to the bank. Then the bank takes up all those mortgages and it piles them all up, and then takes some of those and wraps them up into a little present, puts a bow on top of it, and sells it to an investor. And this is exactly what a derivative is in a nutshell. You have all of the debt incorporated here into a little package that they call a derivative, which there are countless different types. I'll get into that in a moment here, but essentially packaging it up and calling it an investment. And this is very frightening in some ways, because if you saw what happened during the financial crisis, you had what they claimed to be a diversified asset. But of course, it was very, very far from the truth. So let's get into this here out of Bloomberg. Think junk bonds in the 1980s, internet stock offerings in the 1990s, and mortgage-backed securities in the 2000s. These innovations were quantum leaps forward, and they made capital available at a lower cost to people and companies that wouldn't be able to access it. So that is what you do when your markets are beginning to slide, or perhaps they're on a plateau. You create new schemes and avenues for these companies to take advantage of. And that's happening right now. I've shown you here on this channel how consistently countries like China, like the US, and others as well are relaxing their lending standards and allowing things to heat up once again, simply because it's cooling down. The synthetic CDO, collateralized debt obligation, was a similar, albeit more complex innovation which allowed sophisticated investors to choose precisely the kind of financial risks they wanted to take. So we have this other thing called a CDO, and this was very interesting. And instead of getting into Bloomberg's way of describing it, which you can read for yourself, let's go to the diagram I drew in my book. And another way here, another cartoon sort of way to draw it, and they called it an investment vehicle. I would consider it something else, and I'll show you exactly what I mean in a moment, but here is just one example. They take car loans, they take mortgages, they take credit card debt, and they package it up right here, put a little bow on top, and they actually rate it at a AAA investment. And I put those in quotes intentionally, because that is not something you want to invest in, that's for sure. So they gave it a AAA rating simply because it is the worst of the worst garbage, so they need to rate it at the highest rating, or else nobody would ever want to buy it. But here they are, collateralized debt obligations were bought up considerable amounts, and of course we saw where that had us. So what about how bad the things can actually get. You know, this article out of The Economist talks about weather derivatives. We're looking at a situation where they're able to do whatever they want. They're betting, actually gambling billions upon billions of dollars on the weather specifically. Weather derivatives had an inauspicious start. The first trade was done by Enron in 1997. You can read about this in Infectious Greed by Frank Partnoy, an excellent book if you want to know what happened starting from the 80s and 90s onward. It is an extremely good book, well detailed. And he talks about the treachery that was going on with Enron, gambling on the weather. I had to do not a double take, but a triple take when he started talking about this in the book, because I couldn't believe that they were actually gambling on the weather. It is absolutely incredible to read this kind of disaster that is just waiting to happen. You can't go betting on this type of thing because it's so volatile, and whose money are they using in order to do this? Well, this is what a derivative is. Forget my diagrams, forget Bloomberg, forget Wikipedia and all those equations. This is what a derivative is. It's a pile of garbage. And anyone who says that it's not a pile of garbage is probably somehow interconnected in with this system. But this is the truth. We have a pile of garbage being traded out there, being rated at a AAA investment, and our dollars are basically being backed up by this. Now, let me get into that in a moment here. This is Elizabeth Warren. She said, Citigroup is holding government funding hostage to ram through its government bailout provision. She said that they're taking an aim at Citigroup's lobbyists who had proposed language to lawmakers that would roll back some of the provisions in the Dodd-Frank law related to derivatives. And of course, they went ahead and did that. It was pretty easy for them because there's so much money being invested. I just showed you recently, Chuck Schumer there, who had the countless, I can't remember the amount, but it was a significant amount of money coming from all these big banks. So of course, when the quote-unquote lawmakers are creating additional regulations, or in this case, deregulations, they are doing so not with our intentions in mind, but of course, the big corporations, the big bankers. So what I had said back in 2012, quoted on the air with an interview with SGT Report, I said specifically that the derivatives will be used to hold us hostage. They are much bigger than anything anyone could have ever have predicted, and they will undoubtedly collapse. And the day that they do, the solution will already be provided for us, and they will certainly use it to hold us hostage. Look at this right here out of the New York Times. JP Morgan's derivatives portfolio has been declining, and it's only $70 trillion. That's right. In 2013, it's only $70 trillion. That's pretty much nothing anymore. Look at this. Merrill Lynch, $39 trillion. Goldman Sachs, $48 trillion, and so on and so forth. You're looking at more. If you take just JP Morgan alone, they have more in derivatives than the GDP of the entire world. And we know that the GDP itself is fraudulent because in Europe, for example, they're using things like prostitution and drugs that are accounting for their GDP numbers. So the GDP numbers are completely false, and even using that, there's still more derivatives held by one single company than all of it altogether. It's so impeccable to read this kind of information. I can't even, I'm at a loss of words to describe it, but essentially what we're looking at is the biggest disaster possible. If you think the dollar crisis is a problem, if you think the petrodollar is a problem, food shortages, the derivatives are above all of that because all of the markets are connected to it. That's how powerful these derivatives are. The OECD has some interesting things to say, but what I want to take from this really long piece of information here. The financial and economic crisis of 2000 and 2009 heightened the concern of pension regulatory and supervisory authorities regarding pension funds' use of alternative investments and derivatives. That's right, your pension fund are connected or directly invested in derivatives. Do you understand the implications here? This could collapse everything. Your pension funds. What happens when pension funds are taken away from people at alarming rates? You're going to have civil unrest. You're going to have riots. You're going to have major problems, and it's going to affect every single stock market, every single market, in fact, all around the world. That affects food, that affects energy, electricity, that affects the stock markets, the bond markets, and everything else. Even if you personally are not invested in derivatives, it doesn't matter because all markets are connected. And guess what? The derivatives are sitting directly on top. I just wanted to say that this video will be one of many where I will get into the very specifics about different topics. So I'm going to talk about, for example, in this instance, what is a derivative. I will also discuss what is the stock market, what are stocks, how do they work, and so on and so forth, and get into the basics. And this will be the beginning of an educational series that we can turn into something that we can share with our friends, with our family, or perhaps you just want to learn. You're new to this, or you just want a refresher course. This is going to be available for free at the Money GPS YouTube channel. I'll add it to the e-course right here on my main page, and I will continuously be adding these in here so that we can get a more diversified set of information at the Money GPS. Let's use this channel as a tool in order to inform ourselves, because the truth isn't being taught in the schools. So it is my goal here, I will state personally, my goal to educate the public as much as I can, financial education, teaching them what the schools simply will not, so you can empower yourself to make the decisions for yourself and your family. I hope that this will be something that you will enjoy. If so, please give me a thumbs up. If you found the video informative, again, give me a thumbs up on that, and I will continue to make more. I'd like to know your thoughts about this and what I'm trying to bring out here. And of course, your feedback is very, very important to me. I'm always replying to your emails, and you know that, so I'm continuously trying to get back to you guys. I hope you know that the delay is getting more and more, but I'm always replying back. Don't forget to become an insider, because that's where I give out all the intel like this onto the insiders, and you can sign up on there, and every few days you get an email in your inbox with good, short, concise info. All you need to do is go to themoneygps.com, scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get those emails from me. Take care.